Right before your old self fades away, something unusual stirs. The life you've grown accustomed to suddenly feels cramped, constrictive, almost suffocating. It's like trying to squeeze into clothes that no longer fit your frame. Many people misinterpret this moment as a failure, yet what they fail to see is that life is nudging them out of the shell they've stubbornly clung to. Very soon, you'll understand why this unease isn't an ending. It's the subtle signal that change has already begun, and it reveals that you are closer to the person you are meant to become than ever before. Have you noticed how your mind holds on to habits, even ones you've grown tired of? You tell yourself you're weary of thinking the same thoughts, repeating the same cycles, and still, almost automatically, you fall back into them. That's because your old self isn't a single habit you can simply switch off. It's an intricate network, like a web, every thread holding the others in place so the system doesn't collapse. Beliefs, expectations, doubts, reactions, they all sustain each other, preserving the shape of who you've been, even when it no longer aligns with who you're striving to become. Think of it as the operating system on an old computer. The hardware still works, but the software is out of date. It drags, crashes at inconvenient times, and resists any attempt at updating. That's exactly how your old self operates. It runs routines and programs installed years ago, programs that once served a purpose but now hinder your progress. Unlike files on a machine, you can't simply delete them. You must first recognize the system before you can begin to reprogram it. Here's what it looks like in real time. A fleeting, insecure thought appears. Perhaps something small, like, "I'm probably going to fail." Your body reacts with that familiar tension. That physical discomfort makes you hesitate or pull back entirely. The avoidance then confirms the original thought. "See, I wasn't ready." That one loop transforms into a cycle, repeating day after day. Because the brain favors familiarity, it allows this loop to harden into a default mode, even if it's painful. Psychologists often point out that our brains conserve energy by reusing known patterns. Picture walking the same forest path daily. The trail becomes worn. It's easier to tread, so you continue using it simply because creating a new path demands effort. Even if that worn trail leads in circles, it feels safer than venturing into uncharted terrain. Thoughts operate in the same way. The old self keeps you on the familiar track, not because it serves you, but because it saves energy, protecting you from forging a new system. These loops don't operate in isolation. That whisper of self-doubt isn't just a single voice. It feeds a larger network of fear. Fear seeps into hesitation, which influences choices, cascading into entire areas of life. One shaky wire props up the entire circuit of your old self. Remove the doubt, and hesitation weakens. Remove hesitation, and fear diminishes. But as long as those links hold, the web remains intact, and the outdated system keeps running. And here's where it gets fascinating. When the system begins to fracture, it feels anything but smooth. Your mind senses disruption, discomfort spikes. Old patterns often intensify, as if defending their existence. Doubts may seem louder, fears sharper. This isn't regression. It's the unmistakable signal that you've reached the boundary of your old self. Resistance surges because the system knows collapse is near. This is why clinging to familiar routines isn't failure. It's evidence you're pressing against the edges of what no longer fits. The tension that feels unbearable is proof that cracks have started forming in the structure you've carried for years. That's the moment you gain power, not by forcing it away, not by pretending it's gone, but by seeing it clearly for what it is. Structures once necessary, now obsolete. Awareness is your first tool for change. Recognizing the loop, identifying outdated software, understanding how one thought fuels another, this is the opening. Once you see the system, you're no longer trapped inside it. You can begin nudging it in a new direction. And when even the smallest loop shifts, the rest start to weaken. So, it's not a question of whether your old self will collapse. It's about how you face the moment when it does. Because when the system truly begins to crumble, it doesn't feel orderly. It feels like chaos pressing at the edges of your mind. What does it feel like when a part of you starts to break down? It's neither calm nor gentle. There's no soundtrack, no clear path forward. It feels raw, uncomfortable, like the air itself has thinned, and each breath demands extra effort. You feel pressure, as if your mind and body are suddenly too small for you to inhabit. It's like being trapped in a shell that no longer fits, pressing in from every angle. Nothing aligns as it once did, and this tension intensifies the more you ignore it. It's a signal that transformation is stirring beneath the surface. At first, it rarely feels like progress. It looks more like disintegration. Many mistake this stage for rock bottom, assuming depression, weakness, or failure. But what they're truly experiencing is the collapse of a system that can no longer sustain itself. It's like watching a bridge shudder and crack. Terrifying, yes, but natural. A necessary stage before anything new is built. One of the clearest metaphors comes from a caterpillar in its chrysalis. From the outside, it appears dormant, waiting to sprout wings. Inside, however, it dissolves, forming a liquid matrix before reorganizing into a butterfly. Messy, fragile, unrecognizable, yet essential for transformation. Something similar unfolds inside you when the old self dissolves. Studies on identity shifts show that major internal changes often bring disorientation, even grief. You begin questioning long-held beliefs. Foundations you thought were solid crumble. Habits you once defended now irritate you, and you can no longer tolerate them. It feels as if your footing is lost, because part of it truly is. The self you clung to, even if no longer useful, is being released. Consider someone who has lived by the thought, "I'm not enough." Their life revolves around that belief, avoiding risk, settling for comfort, keeping emotions small. But when that belief fractures, they feel disoriented. What happens without that identity? Who are they if they no longer replay the fearful script? This is the dissolution stage. The old script burns out, yet the new one isn't written. Resistance grows loud, doubts scream, fears strike harder. Not because you're failing, but because the old system is fighting for survival. Like fire flaring brightest before extinguishing, the old self makes its loudest noise just before breaking. This stage feels like an ending, not a beginning. It feels as if too much is being lost at once. Yet discomfort here is not final. It's a threshold. Consider the deep ache in your body just before it heals stronger, or ice cracking before water flows freely. Your mind and identity operate similarly. Structures must loosen, crumble, and release to make space for what's next. Breakthrough always begins at the point of greatest tension, when the system can no longer hold, when cracks widen, when the center feels fragile. That's when renewal starts to emerge. That sense of falling apart signals that something new is ready to form. What rises from the collapse isn't emptiness or chaos. It's alignment beginning to take shape. Initially, it's subtle, quiet, hesitant, like tiny shoots pushing through frozen soil. Fragile, uncertain, easy to miss. But this early phase lays the foundation of your new self, more adaptable and resilient than anything you've carried before. When old patterns collapse, a gap appears where default reactions once resided. In that space, your brain begins wiring new connections. The transformation isn't instantaneous. It feels unpolished. You may catch an old thought, pause, choose differently. It's subtle, like noticing a room feels lighter after opening a window. Each small choice accumulates until an entirely new system emerges. This stage is uncomfortable. Picture a snake after shedding its skin, exposed, raw, vulnerable. Your old protections are gone, yet the new ones aren't fully formed. Growth feels fragile. Vulnerability often tricks people into thinking they've regressed. Renewal doesn't feel strong at first. Strength develops after exposure, after sitting with discomfort long enough to cultivate resilience. Neuroscience explains this unease. New neural pathways form, while old ones weaken. Imagine your familiar highway closed. You must navigate a new route. Initially inefficient and confusing, it becomes clear with repetition. eventually faster than the old route. This is your mind rewiring. The old system of doubt, fear, and hesitation loses influence as you avoid it. The new path of clarity and self-trust gains momentum with each choice. You can feel it when self-doubt begins to dissolve. That voice that whispered, "You'll fail," starts to sound less convincing. You begin to consider, "Maybe I can handle this." This single shift isn't just a thought. It's the seed of a new system. Trust in one decision spreads confidence across your life. You stand differently, speak steadily, act decisively. Removing fear reorganizes the network around strength, certainty, and calm. Change cascades. As fear diminishes, momentum grows. Without hesitation's weight, you move faster. Without doubt's fog, thinking sharpens. Small improvements trigger chain reactions, activating new systems, lifting you higher than ever before. Fragile sprouts eventually root deeply, supporting a new season of life. Transformation goes beyond survival. Survival is holding on. Evolution is becoming what your old self couldn't imagine. The caterpillar didn't cling harder. It became something entirely new. The same is occurring in you. The old wasn't lost. It was cleared to make space for something truer. The death of the old self isn't loss. It's birth. Birth of a self unburdened by fear, doubt, or hesitation. Rise of an integrated self, capable of filling the space once unbearably tight. This new system runs on alignment, trust, and forward motion. If discomfort feels sharp and unfamiliar now, it's not a setback. It's your rebirth underway. Urgency meets hope. Once the new system breathes, everything else shifts. Forward is the only direction. The old self isn't dying. It's clearing the way for something wiser, stronger, truer. What feels like an ending is the first scene of something new. Don't resist the tension. It's proof that transformation is happening. Not your downfall, your signal. If you recognize this space, claim it. Write "reborn" in the comments. You're not losing yourself. You're stepping into the version of you that has always been waiting.